I want to start out with this question. Would you rather have $9 million right now or be born again knowing everything you know right now? So if you got to snap your finger and say, I'm born again knowing everything right now that I know today, or $9 million cash, how many of you would pick $9 million cash? And then how many would pick be born again knowing everything? Now think about your answer for that. Like why would you answer that way? What are the things that you would do differently? How would you, because you'd be a weird kindergartner. You know, the teacher says something, you're like, well, that's not, that's addition, but, multiplication, it works like this. Life's, like, think about why you'd want to be born again. Would it potentially be the idea that you'd like to undo some things? You'd like a chance to redo, make a different decision, maybe completely the opposite of what you've done before? And most people choose, I'd rather be born again than to have cash right now. And this phenomenon is based on a very simple concept. When you take an action, you get an outcome. And if you don't like the outcome, logic says I should choose a different action. So if I go and do something and I go, ooh, that didn't work, I should stop. And as a kid, you get that concept. It makes total sense. Your mom is cooking dinner. She says, don't you dare touch that stove. And you go, well, I'd like to see for myself. It's a pretty red. I'm going to give it a shot. And you touch that stove, you burn your finger, and she says, I told you so. And you go, oh, I'm never doing that again. Easy. I took an action, and I got an opposite result. But as an adult, we don't accept that. I mean, think of how many conversations you've been in with people that you've gone, well, that didn't go well. Maybe if I do it differently. Or a selling conversation where you go, I didn't get the outcome I want. I'm going to change my questions up a little bit. I'm going to make some modifications to what my cold call might be. I'm going to do things a little different. You don't choose the opposite to get an opposite result. You don't say, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it the other way. That's not intuitive to us. We want to tweak and adjust and do things a little at a time. When we think of liars, you've learned the lesson with lying is that the truth will always come out most of the time. I mean, there's probably some lies you're like, they never found out this. But most of the time, the truth comes out. So you learn over time, I should probably lie less because everybody's going to figure it out later. But the weird thing about lie detection is the way to sniff out a liar is to believe everything they say. And that's not an intuitive thing. Those of you who are parents that have teenagers or middle schoolers, you've learned this as parents. They say, they come home late from somewhere, and you go, well, where were you? Why are you late? And they go, well, I got lost. And you go, oh, wow, it's tough to get lost in your own city and the way that you come home all the time. What happened this time? They go, well, I took a wrong turn because I was listening to the radio. Oh, what song was on? Oh, it was that new, I don't know. All of a sudden it starts to go away and they're unrolling their lie. But you believed them. You're like, yeah, it makes sense. People get lost. It's okay. So the way to deal with a liar is to believe them, not an intuitive thought. There's also weaknesses that we have as people and as salespeople at the same time. And these weaknesses are hidden because society says you're supposed to be a certain way, and real life says, well, that doesn't work. I want to walk you through two of those because they have a lot to do with the approach I'm going to suggest. The first is the idea of need for approval. And need for approval is nothing more than the quest to be wanted, liked, loved by people. And we think, yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be liked by people. As salespeople, we think, well, I got to be liked, then they'll trust me, and then they'll buy from me. Nah, doesn't quite work out that way, you've learned. And think about why it doesn't work. Picture yourself back at the lockers in middle school or high school, and you're changing out your books, figuring out what you got to take to the next class, getting your homework out, and a kid comes up to you, and they want you to like them. What would that conversation look like? It's kind of like hey, you want to come over to my house after school? I'll let you eat all my food. You can borrow my clothes. Hey, did you do the homework? If not, you can copy off of me and you can cheat off the test. What are you thinking in that moment? Get away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. You are repulsed by someone trying to get to like you. But here we go through life and in selling going, well, it's important that they like me. I got to be careful with people. I have to please them and do these things. Turns out that drives people away. It's the opposite. Compared to the kid, you're walking down the hallway and you're walking through and you look at somebody and they go, hey, and keep walking because they could care less what you think. You're like, that person was cool. Opposite. Why would that be? In selling, emotional involvement applies. Emotional involvement is focusing on the outcome that we want. And we think, oh, I got to be passionate. I got to want their business. I need their business. It's a great client. I'd love to have them. All that stuff screws you up. It's the difference between a practice swing and a real swing in golf. Practice swing, you get a hole-in-one every time. You're like, look at that thing. It goes right into the hole. And then you step up to the ball and you go, well, now it's going to be real because the ball is going to actually identify where it goes based on where I hit it. And you get all messed up and you shank it in the woods. You go, oh, my practice swing was so good. It actually probably was. But this idea of I shouldn't care, I shouldn't focus on the outcome, it's also very counterintuitive. But turns out when you don't care, good things happen. So there's rules that we teach in Sandler to be an anchor for you.
Thank you for watching this highlight video from the Sandler Summit. You can join us for the next Sandler Summit in 2024, March 19th and 20th at the Orlando World Center Marriott. Register now at sandler.com/summit.